You're listening to another episode of Battles with Bits of Rubber.
So here we are in our workshop after our 2-day trip out to Coventry at the Prosthetics Event 2024.
Spectacular event. Great day.
And here we are back.
Yeah.
A little bit jet lagged without having got on an aircraft. But
yeah, you should be more tired than I am, and I'm, because you did all the driving.
Yeah, it was pretty tiring, but it was such a good time. I had a really good time, and we spoke to hundreds of people. It was really good.
At least I was pretty hoarse yesterday.
Were you? By the end of it all?
Yeah. It was just, my throat was raw from talking so much.
Yeah, it was good. So we had our first talk, which was the mold making thing, and we've done some notes for that, which is up on the website, which will be available with the notes for this episode. So if you look below, you should see, or if you're listening on YouTube, there should be a description, because we did some notes for a mold that we made, because we did a presentation about those afraid of mold making.
Yeah, how to mold a spherical object and be able to remove it from the mold.
Or not. But the point was to deal with that fear.
It's an introduction into what undercuts are.
Yes. And the beauty of release agents and keys and all that kind of stuff. But it's a practical exercise that you can partake in, and it's not an expensive exercise to do. So that's
and it's designed for you to fail.
Yes. So, which is a good thing to be able to do. Mm-hmm. So we had that. We then spoke to people. Then we spoke to Mark Coulier for about an hour.
That was terrific. Got an insight into his design process.
Yeah, which is interesting because Mark is known for doing very, very good work and having a good team. And I think it might be quite scary when you get to a point like with him where you're good and you're known for being good. And then you have to be very careful about people you take on and how you maintain the people you have. Because
But he's been working non-stop and when everybody else is wondering what happened.
Because he's that good. So yeah. So that was a really interesting chat, and seeing some really cool behind the scenes photos from Frankenstein and Harry Potter and designing the Voldemort makeup and dealing with all that kind of stuff. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that. So what was the highlight for you?
I really enjoyed the little chat we had. I mean, there were brief chats, maybe 10, 15 minutes each, with Adrian Rigby and Sangeet Prabhaker, and wow.
Yeah. And they were short and sweet because we only had brief moments with them.
Sangeet just really energized me. I was starting to drag because it was toward the end of the day.
Yeah. And
he was so enthusiastic. It just really pumped me up, and we were able to tear down and get out of there so we could go hit the after party in the pub.
Yeah.
And everybody was in there. That was a great evening, hanging out, talking with students who had been there that day, and being able to prolong some of the things that we had started earlier in the day.
Yeah. So we've got those interviews on here. So we'll put Adrian's chat, which we had first, and then Sangeet towards the end of the day. It was almost at the end of the day, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And he'd just done his demo, so he's all fired up. So we'll put the Adrian Rigby one on and Sangeet, because that's the order that we recorded them in on here. But something that I thought was really interesting was how there were a few things that became apparent to me throughout the day speaking to a lot of students. One of them was the effect of how university courses and college courses here have been sort of punched in the guts because of the way the whole sector's been affected.
Right.
And a lot of courses have been affected, and there has been a lot of tough things happening at colleges. Student numbers were down, combined with the fact that the strikes had been for a year, so it just made everything look very bleak. But there was so much care and attention into the demos that everyone had done.
There was a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of hopeful thinking, positive thinking about it, and it was great also seeing Howard Berger, who's working on a film up in Manchester, came down and spent a good part of the day. I haven't seen Howard in quite a while.
Yeah,
everybody. V was there, Richard Martin. Sebastian Lockman, two of the best sculptors in the world, and Sebastian works a lot with Mark Coulier, and oh my God, their work is amazing. In fact, we're going up tomorrow back near Coventry to sit down and have a longer chat with Richard Martin.
Yep, because he was very kindly set aside some time for us, and it's a hassle to go back up, but I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not familiar with his work, he's got a good presence on social media. He's in the new edition of my book. Did an age makeup, and it's just gorgeous stuff.
It's good stuff, yeah. His latest thing was Day of the Jackal with Eddie Redmayne that's just come out, I think.
Oh,
so,
I want to see that.
So we'll be able to look at those pieces, I guess, from there, and the molds and all that kind of stuff. He's very generous, and he's always been very process orientated and very like a man of action. You know, like I get very distracted by creative kind of block and thoughts, but he's very pragmatic and just deals with things as a series of steps that needs to be achieved. I've never seen him like floundered or flustered by the creative process ever. But then he churns out really good stuff. It's not like he cuts corners. He still makes things look good.
Well, he's innovative as well. He's like Sebastian and Mark are. They're pushing the boundaries. Richard's doing a lot of stuff in 3D and then going straight to print of the molds for flat molds and contoured molds. It's really brilliant stuff.
And not necessarily even just replicating what we do in the past with 3D printed versions. He's actually coming up with new techniques like the From Life stuff, where they're just they're the kind of combinations of very common sense, old fashioned things. You'll hear it in this podcast. He explains how he does
From
it.
Life, that's Sangeet's new company. Where he's doing. I'm not going to go into the process because it's his thing, and he explained it, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, no, he explains it in this audio you hear of him. He will tell you how he does it. That's what I mean. That's what he's like. He's not holding on to anything. He just gives it all away, because the thing is, it's hard to do well. It's like if I tell you how to make a sandwich, doesn't mean you're going to bring Subway to its knees, because now you know how to cut a piece of bread in half and stick some fucking cheese in there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not that. It's not, and it's an excellent way of thinking, I think. So that was very cool.
And he had a grin on his face. He was almost looked like a Canadian from South Park, as his head was damn near split in half.
Yeah.
With a grin. He was so excited about what he was telling us.
Well, I think he's worked so hard for so long, and also, you know, the things he's been doing have been not what people do. So he doesn't really think. Other people don't really think the way he thinks. And I think he's had either a lot of resistance or a lot of people going, yeah, I don't understand why you need to worry about that. We already got this nailed. And it's having people like that for a long time will think differently. And eventually when it bears fruit, everyone goes, oh, that's why you would think that. And it's, do you know what I mean? But he's been thinking that the whole time.
It's kind of like spitballing ideas and brainstorming. You know, you don't hold anything back. You try everything, and it may not be the answer at the time, but it will spark something in somebody else's thinking, and they go, oh, that's interesting, but what if I tried this instead of that? And boom, that's how these big new things happen. You know, I imagine that's how Kristen Tinsley and the whole Bondo transfer thing happened in the first place, is somebody noticed that Prosaid freezes and turns into plastic.
Can this be a good thing? Yeah. Yeah. So that was it. Was the whole day was like that. It was fizzing in the head, excitement. And what I found tricky to do was when we would do our talk and then we come back to our table, we'd set up a recording setup, so we had our thing to go, and then we did get a couple of recordings done, but we didn't. That's all we did, because every time we would turn around, someone there wanted you to sign your book.
Yeah, it was nonstop all day long. It was exhausting, but a good exhausting.
A good exhausting, yeah. And the student questions as well. People would come up and they have a specific thing they want to get to the bottom of, and you know, I'd whip out a pen and paper and we'd sort of bang out some ideas.
Well, one thing I noticed is the quality of novice work seems to be improving.
Yeah.
I don't think I looked at anything that I was going, you really shouldn't be in this field. I saw lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, room for improvement, yeah, but I didn't see anything that was disappointing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as well, because a lot of colleges, they'll teach the techniques, but this is why I like doing this podcast, is we can get into the nitty gritty of how to think. Because if what I've noticed, you get a lot of students that will do the same kinds of things the same way, because they're all sort of taught the same processes. And it's like they've displayed in their work that they understand the processes, which is good. But then, like when we had our portfolio surgeries, that's one of the things I pointed out. I can see that you know these things, but so do lots of other people. It's what do you do with those things? It's like if you learn the alphabet, that's great, and you can write the alphabet beautifully with a beautiful calligraphy pen and all that kind of stuff. But I want to see those letters joined up into words that make interesting paragraphs, that make compelling stories. And everyone's going to learn the same alphabet, but they'll write different things with those same 26 letters. And so I think that what differentiates people is how they think and how they approach things from a design point of view, rather than just doing a really, really good thing that's not particularly inspiring. I think that's the thing that sets people apart. Because if you see 5 beautifully aligned ball caps and you've got to pick one, it might be the one that's also got a nice character to it as well, which is a hard thing to do. So how can you get character in a bald head? But it's like, well, if you look at lots of bald heads, sometimes you'll see some more than others, or do you know what I mean? So there's the exercise of how I make an edge go away, and there's the exercise of how do I make this person look more sinister or more sympathetic or more upset, makeup wise.
Yeah. Well, we actually were talking about that with Adrian and the bald caps. It's like, how do you make it if you are having somebody with a freshly shaved head? Obviously, the skin underneath that hair hasn't seen sunlight, so it's going to be paler than the rest of the head. Mm-hmm. Do you leave it that way because it's going to be like a real hot spot and overblown? When you shoot it, do you want to blend the color to look more tanned like the rest of the face that's seen the sunlight, or do you leave it more natural? It depends on what the tone of the story is going to be.
Yeah. Because it might look weird if you do it right.
Yeah, but that might be what you want to do.
So that's a design choice, because most people will be very happy to blend into the skin, as you say. But if you just shaved your head, as you say, there will be a very different color. And that's a bold thing to do. There's lots of things, a lot of makeup like that. There's lots of things that can be, I've seen people do like wounds and stuff, and they go, oh, this does happen. But the thing that does happen looks weird. And it's almost like you need to make a choice to not do the real thing. You have to run it by a second filter, which is, does it look stupid? Does it look believable? Because some things are so weird, even though they're real, unless it's a medical drama that's very specific, it might look so unfamiliar to people that that in itself makes it look fake.
And I was talking with one student up there who was getting ready to do a neck wound, like a slit throat, and she was asking questions about how to rig do the blood, the best way to do a blood rig underneath it, to get it to bleed. So we were talking about that, and I know most directors want to go for the spectacle when you see a slit throat or a bullet wound that's going to splatter, and you see this just gushing blood that's all over the place when you slit the throat. And granted, there will be a lot of blood if you slit somebody's throat enough to kill them quickly, but it's not going to shoot out like a spray gun, like a cannon. It will just come out and down the chest. There won't be any splatter at all.
Yeah,
or very little.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, what kind of look do you want? It's an artistic choice.
Yeah,
but to be real, doesn't do that.
Yeah, there was a makeup I had to do a while ago at Millennium Effects, probably 20 years ago, and it was a show called The Walk, and it was about this charity walk with a load of cancer survivors, and this woman had breast cancer, so she had a breast removed, and the director was a man, and he wanted there to be a big gnarly scar there because he thought it'd be dramatic, and the makeup designer, who was a woman who had a friend who'd had a breast removed because of breast cancer, said it isn't like that, and in addition to that, that's a very irresponsible thing to do, because not only does it not look like that in reality, but also you're going to frighten off people getting checked if they think they're going to get mutilated like this. It's not how it works. And the biggest difference was because the tissue had been removed and these had been joined up, there was a difference in color here than here, because normally that skin is higher up and this is lower down. So it was like, that was a really subtle thing. So the scar itself was very small, but it was mostly a paint thing and obviously the absence of the tissue. And that made it a much better makeup and more realistic. So that was if it had been a guy doing it who hadn't thought about it, or you were worried to disagree with your director, you might end up doing something that, unbeknownst to you, is kind of irresponsible, which is why it's nice to have a team that's diverse, that thinks in different ways. You can kind of run it by people so that you end up doing the right thing with the makeup and not just say yes to a director who might be wrong.
Right.
Or a prick, or both. He wasn't, but I'm just saying, sometimes you get us to do things that are wrong.
It's something you don't think about. You go, oh, it'd be cool to have this car, but in reality, it's different. I'm squeaking on the chair. What looks real, or what is real looks fake
Yeah.
on screen. There's reality and there's screen reality. You cheat shots to make somebody look taller or certain things, and that's one of them. What skin does in a real wound. Fresh avulsion. You rip the skin. How the skin responds doesn't do what many wounds I see in student work. They're not really using reference, or they're using reference images, but they're not really seeing what's going on in the reality. That skin kind of folds inward on itself rather than blooming outward like a flower.
Yeah. Which is often the thing people do, because that allows you the build-up of the appliance. But that's not what you want to do, as you say. It should go inwards if it's been indented. So
you want to keep the profile of your wounds or your sculpts as low profile as possible.
Yeah.
Because it helps you with blending edges, and it doesn't stand out like like a pimple. It's not a volcano.
No, a little flesh volcano.
Yeah, you want it to be. You want somebody to look at it and go, "Oh my God, what did you do? I need to take you to the emergency room."
Yeah, it's tricky with appliances like that, isn't it? Because often you want that depth, and so to supply that depth, you do have to build up.
But then I think they really get that sense of depth, and that becomes a paint job.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because the depth is. You're right. I've seen people make pieces very thick in order to create depth, but what it actually does is it creates a flesh volcano, and it doesn't look like it goes in. It looks like you built it up.
Stands out and doesn't. It looks weird.
Yeah, you're right, and that can affect. As you say, with the paint, that can be very good. And I've often done that with, people have a wound and they want it to look dark, so you can paint black in the very, very center. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, if a wound is bleeding or it's being touched in action, that might wipe out. So what you can do is maybe paint PAX paint on the underside of the piece or on the skin first, where the hole is going to be, the deepest part. Then when you glue your appliance over the top, that black is underneath, so it doesn't get wiped away. And as you say, then it becomes a paint job issue, because the depth often looks deeper than you think. And if it does have to be like a massive cavity, then that's kind of a green screen thing. You've got to composite something else in afterwards.
Yeah, because you're never going to be able to stick your finger in and poke around to probe inside a wound.
No, and if you have seen that, like in Iron Man, that's
then it becomes a visual effects or some kind of an insert shot where you've built something designed to stick your hand into, but you're not seeing the rest of the body.
Yeah. There was going back to the show. There was a lot of digital presence as well. I know Neil and Brad Greenwood, Neil Gorton, Brad Greenwood did a demo of a scan, and then the clean up as much as they could in an hour to demonstrate the scanning process. And there were loads of Neil's materials had loads of printers there, and they were showing all those kinds of stuff. And there's that kind of sense of urgency that might create, where people see all this stuff and go, well, I can't afford a scanner and a printer and all this kind of stuff. But what I would like people to take from this is that there are cheap scanners, and you don't necessarily need to print a lot of stuff.
Well, none of that, inexpensive scanners. They're still good scanners. Yeah,
but then you're burdened with having to learn how to use them. That's the trouble. Yeah. But Nomad is a reasonably priced sculpting practice, like £15 or probably $15
as a less expensive alternative to ZBrush.
Yeah, which can be
or ZBrush, as you Brits call it.
Yeah, I make a habit of trying to call it ZBrush because I know that's how it should be said. But for all of that, you still have to understand, if you're going to make a digital mold, or you're going to do something with a scan, turn it into a mold in a piece, you still have to understand molds anyway.
Yeah, so, well, it just builds on what we were talking about last year at the Prosthetics Event, when we were telling of the 3D revolution, which had already come, but now it's really in place.
Yeah, but those 3D things don't replace ability to understand forms and shapes and sculpting and molds.
It's another tool that, while it's a different species, it still utilizes the same principles to achieve the results.
Yeah, it does.
That we use.
Yeah, and I think that's why the notes that we prepared for our talk, which you can get, again, you click on the show notes for this episode, you will get it's like a 19 or 20 page document that takes you through a very simple molding process that's not expensive. It's just plaster and clay and a rubber ball. But the point is, by doing that, if you've never made a mold, do this thing that's in the exercise, because if you get this in your head and you understand how molds work, then you can take that across to digital. A lot of people, I'm worried.
Yeah,
What I'm worried is
and
people
it's
are buying a bunch of expensive shit and then sit there and they won't know what to do with it because they didn't learn the molding bit first.
Sure, and it's better to screw this up when you're not spending any money or very little money to learn the principles of mold making than trying to learn how to make a mold on something you've spent 6 weeks trying to make beautiful, and you want to show off as a portfolio piece, and then you mold it and you can't open it. Your beautiful sculpture is trapped forever inside 2 pieces of stone or urethane or whatever.
One thing I think that was worth mentioning as well is if you are in the process of molding something, I think it's really important that you take clear photographs of the thing that you've sculpted or the object you're going to mold. The mold, it's like before you mold it, like any clay walls or shim you're going to put on, take pictures of those front and back and top and side, and then take a photo of the finished mold before you open it. And then if you open it and it breaks or you can't open it or whatever,
document everything. Document it all.
Yeah, because the reason is then you can show someone a photo of your claying up and we can go, oh, this is why this went wrong, is because your edge was too
even
far
take
back.
notes, so you know, with each iteration as you improve, you can look back on, all right, this didn't work, so I'll try something different next time. Document it in a notebook. There are a few people who've done very well in the business as mold makers who've made, volumes of their notes, Brian Best being one of them, Claire Green, another, the kind of things that, wow, if this was published, I would buy this in a heartbeat because there are illustrations, there are drawings and notations of how this flange applies, how things intertwine when you're making complex molds that are more than 2 pieces, how they all put together, because you really need to design the mold rather than just putting it together. Mold making is not something that is just a throwaway. It's, I think mold makers, as we talked about, are underappreciated maybe in some cases, that without a good mold, you got nothing.
Yeah.
It's frequently the mold makers who are doing the scans and the life casts that the sculptors will then sculpt on, and then back to the mold maker, those same mold makers, to mold that sculpture so that prosthetic pieces can be run by the foam guys or the silicone guys, or if it's a small shop, it's one person wearing all of those hats. Like I do.
Like I do, yeah. You have to know it all.
Got to know how to do everything.
Yeah.
And screwing up something, you're going to make mistakes no matter how long you work in the field. Everybody makes mistakes. You just make different mistakes, and hopefully smaller mistakes that have fewer consequences.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to grow. But in order to grow, you have to make mistakes. You got to, you work in your comfort zone, and some people never get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But in order to improve and advance, you've got to push yourself outside that comfort zone until that area becomes comfortable, and then you go outside the comfort zone again. But it's that's the only way to get better.
Was there anything else I wanted to cover? I don't think so. We will think of other things to go.
Well, tomorrow, we already mentioned that we're going up to see Richard Martin back up near Coventry, but we're also stopping off on our way back down to Surrey to see Chris Clark, who, if you don't know who Chris Clark is, what's wrong with you?
He's an animatronic genius.
He's brilliant. And he's also a novelist. He's also a thriller novelist, which I'm excited to talk to him about the writing process, because I'm in the process of writing my first novel. If I ever get it finished, we'll see, but I'm having a great time with it. So there's that, but the mechanics of what we do, I don't know that there's anybody better than Chris Clark. He's certainly up there in the upper echelon, along with Rick Lazzarini and some of the Stan Winston guys whose names are escaping me right now. But he is amazing. He's also a spectacular puppeteer. He did the horse. He did Joey the horse in War Horse. And if you haven't seen the movie, the puppetry in that is incredible.
And puppeteering is an interesting crossover because usually when you sculpt an appliance, you stick it on an actor and then they animate that through their performance as an actor. But if you make like an animatronic creature or a puppet, that then only looks right if the person moving it looks it, because it can look shit otherwise. It can look beautifully as a static object, but as soon as it starts moving, it doesn't. So being able to translate movements of horses, and there's a very good clip of Chris. There's a close-up of what looks like a horse.
I actually have it on my phone, so we can put that in the notes.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It's the folks who sculpted the horse and built it did a spectacular job.
Top to bottom,
and Chris did all of the mechanics. You know, the nose paddles and lips and the ears, and then puppeteered the whole thing. And watching that horse do the horse thing, what horses do. You know, so much of that observation is to see what they do because their mouths are always moving, and when the nostrils flare, and how the ears will twitch to not, you know, flip flies away, kind of thing.
Sure.
And the camera pulls out. It kind of looks like Chris has got his arms up the horse's butt, but it's
do big lever movements.
Yeah, it's the back of the horse, no legs. It's just the neck and head, and it's an incredible thing. And
it's the gross movements as well. It's the head moving and the neck pushing against the person.
Yeah, because there's somebody holding the reins, holding a bridle.
And it's just it looks like a real horse until you pull back, and it's not a high quality video. It still looks like a real
horse.
Yeah,
it's just where's the rest of this horse?
But what's nice is it's not a high. It's not like a 4K high def.
No,
video. But you can. What I'm saying is because of that you don't get to see the subtle movements. But even that makes you realise the big movements are what sell it, and it happens a lot with performance as well. You know, if someone's not acting the right way, then we don't believe that this guy's Morklock, bringer of doom, because he looks like Steve from Accounts. Do you know what I mean? And how he walks. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be able to embody that character.
Steve.
So it's a lot to put on to be able to design the mechs and then make the thing fucking move right. And I know you do get puppeteers that don't do mechs and vice versa, but Chris is the whole package. He does that and that. So it'd be really nice to talk to him about that.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Fabulous. Well, we waffled on. What we need to do is say, right, listen first to this one. This is Adrian Rigby talking about ball caps, and then we'll be back after that.
We're walking around just a minute ago and ran into Adrian Rigby,
who is well known for doing ball caps. I want to talk ball caps with you.
Yeah, I can do ball caps okay, but other people do them just as well. But I think I just sort of ended up getting asked a lot. Because I've just got like a technique that works for me, and I'm really happy to pass that on to people because I like it simple.
Well, I've changed the way I do them because of your way.
Yeah.
And if you really like it, you know, you can look at my book. Adrian in there. Yeah.
I forgot about that.
What I think is interesting is that for me, ball caps are one of those benchmark makeups. When we're talking to students and they say, what kind of makeups do you think would really blow people away? We always say noses, just a realistic nose and a ball cap.
Yep.
Because you can't hide a realistic ball cap. There's no bruising, there's no patterns, there's no blood, there's just it's all there.
You can hope, but it never happens.
No, but it's just that kind of thing. It's a good thing to aspire to, I think.
Yeah.
But
and I think it's a skill that you should be able to do as a makeup artist, even if you don't do prosthetics, because it's something that it's a good skill.
Yeah. What's the biggest problem you think students have learning how to do it?
I think it's because I always look at a ball cap as two jobs. It's hair, and then it's the application of the ball cap and the painting, which I think is the easier bit. Because if you get the hair wrap wrong, it's going to let you down when you do the cap.
Give somebody a lumpy head.
Yeah. So if you know how to do that properly, the next bit is straightforward.
Do you have any bits of advice for somebody trying to do a wrap on, like shoulder length hair?
Well, I'm not really a person to advise because I don't do hair generally, but I know I can do it for a ball cap. So sometimes I approach it in so many different ways. So,
do you have a favorite way?
You have to use product and get the hair wet, and there's quicker techniques, which you really have to be able to do a quick technique because often the time they don't give you the time to do it.
What's the average time you think it should take to do a ball cap well? Because I know with 706, I think it was 30 minutes when they used to have the test.
Yeah, well, I don't think I could pass that.
I wouldn't think many people
I
could.
guess it all depends on the hair you're dealing with, isn't
But
it, right?
I think I've talked to people about the stories about doing the test, and they've said they did so much prep before they did the test that it was quick.
Yeah. So if you go, I suppose if you go in and the hair's already been wrapped, that's not.
Is that what you mean by prep?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or,
right.
or the cap's been pre-painted, or so you just literally pop it on and blend it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we did did you recommend it to me? Or so I got that ball cap on Kate Winslet to do a couple of years, or last year I think it was. I don't know if that came by
Which
you.
I was going to do.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't do it, and I'm glad I couldn't do it.
And it was for a shower scene as well. And that makeup, what I did was in my head is I did the ball cap 50 different times in my head, thinking about every single thing that could go wrong. And I let that fear sit there, and I thought, right, how would I fix that? And I just came up with problem after problem after problem, and I just went through how I would fix it. And in a weird way, doing that meant that when I did it, we didn't have any problems. But it just meant like had something, of all the things that I can think of to go wrong, I thought of a counter argument as to how I might respond to it.
Well, I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah.
But you also did a test, I think.
Yes, we did a test, but it wasn't on Kate.
No,
so,
yeah.
but still, it was good to get
because
them
it
right.
irons out any potential problems.
Is there one area during application that you find fails more often than others? Like is it around the ears?
It's the back of the neck.
Back of the neck.
Because the back of the neck is always the giveaway. If you can tell somebody's wearing a cap, you're always looking there.
Yeah.
And they've either got a scarf there, a high coat, but more often than not, you're going to see the back of somebody's head, because that's the whole point of doing it.
Right.
Unless there's a wig on there or something.
Or some kind of a foam appliance.
Yeah, like a blender or something. Yeah, but you can't always rely on that. You have to be able to do it as though you're going to see the back of the neck. Because I've seen people skip that bit or not.
Because they think it's at the back.
Yeah,
you're
never going to see it. And then they shoot it from the back.
Yeah, I've seen big movies where that's not natural.
No.
And would you recommend having an edge low to the hairline so it's the smallest possible, or take it down way past costume?
Well, if you're going to have a high collar, and you are, take the cap down so you've no edge to see. But if you're going to have no collar or it's going to be open, higher. As long as you've got a good anchor point.
Do you make your own caps?
No, it's not worth it.
Who makes the best ones?
I like the ones that Pam sell.
From Germany.
From Germany, and the guy's name escapes me, and I know it, but I can't. I've got his details because I had to find them the other day for somebody else in Germany. They're pretty good. They're sort of robust, and
are they vinyl?
They're vinyl, and I think now that he started making them in 2 sizes. But they don't rip very often.
Alcohol or acetone?
Acetone.
They're really soft.
Yeah, really soft.
They're really nice.
I mean, you'll get the odd one now and again that might have a flaw in it, but that's in quality control, I guess. If he's making tons. I actually don't know who makes them, whether he just makes them himself or he has a team or not. But they're pretty good, and Pam have started selling them now with the blood tone, the D32 colour on top, which it saves you 5 or 6 minutes really, because it's generic, so it's not always going to line up where you need it. But they're good, they do blend off really nice, and they're thick where you want them to be thick and thin where you want them to be thin. But because they're generic, they sort of, behind the ear, you always find it a bit thicker because you've got to take that bit away. But again, it's like, if you're paying attention to the back of the neck or behind the ears, then you're looking in the wrong place. You should be. But I mean, Alcone makes some really nice caps in New York. Louis put me onto those, but they're paper thin, so you really have to be careful. But they blend off beautifully.
Right.
And Louis is using them, and they're doing 3 minutes.
Well, I got a taste of that.
I remember you went back, but 3-minute ball caps.
No, I've never done one so quick. I did one with Jason at some events thing in LA. Literally last minute, I didn't know I was
Jason
doing
Milani?
it. Yeah, Jason Milani. And they gave us 15 minutes and we did it in 12. And
that's insane.
And we had to take it off we took it off in 4.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
What were you gluing it on with?
Well, we should have used Prosaid,
Right.
but I think Keenan Thompson wanted it with Telesis because I think Louis had been using it on him,
Right.
and he got in his head that
Telesis
it's
is
easier
the
to
way.
remove.
Right.
So it let us down a little bit.
Can we just go back, touch on that a little bit about the choice of glue? Why would you say Prosade over Telesis?
Well, Telesis is stretchy,
Yeah.
so a ball cap's under tension. I've seen people
Okay, that makes sense.
put caps on with Telesis. I mean, it's fine for a life cast or something quick, but not for a makeup that's going to last all day.
Yeah.
And Prosade, it sticks. It might, sweat might affect it a little bit, but it doesn't move. If you did the proper contact, it will stay.
Yeah.
It doesn't budge all day.
Fantastic.
And if you use Prosade cream, even better because it's thicker, stronger. But
It takes longer to dry it.
yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's not gonna budge.
Yeah.
Never Telesis.
What do you use to remove? What's your favorite?
I think just generally in the UK we use ProClean, just because it's the cheapest on the market, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know that in the
Yeah,
States.
Sherman's make it. Aaron Sherman makes it. Or anything oily,
Super
Super
Solve
Solve,
or-
anything. Yeah. Or whatever you give them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you're giving.
Usually. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But
And can we touch a little bit on colouring? If you're doing like a ball cap, obviously the skin tone of the person is going to be the thing. The thing with the ball cap is it depends, I think, if someone's... There's a couple of things at play. If someone's just shaved their head and that's why they're bald, it's understandably going to be paler than normal because it doesn't see daylight. But that can look weird if they've done it. So do you have to think about that? Do you like make it to match their skin, or do you make it deliberately paler, or are you worried that would look like it's makeup then?
I think I'll do that if I'm asked to do that.
Right.
But generally I'll just do it to match them. Nobody's ever questioned that unless they specifically want even like a 5 o'clock shadow look or something paler. It's never really come up because I just don't think they think about it.
It could look weird even if it's accurate.
If you just don't get the colour quite right, It depends how, if they've been bald for a while, for say a different example, their head's going to be the same colour because they've been in the sun or whatever. So, unless somebody asks you to do something
Yeah, I can
specific.
see how it could work if you're having somebody who's angry, angsty, and they just you see them shaving their head, and then you want to deliberately have it be paler because it's one of those edgier
Well,
scenes.
it's like new skin to the sun, isn't it? The elements, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks very much, Adrian.
Thanks,
No, you're
man.
welcome.
It's great to see you.
Put
Don't
me
get
on
to
the
see
spot.
you enough.
That was Adrian talking about ball caps, and honestly, I think ball caps are still one of the benchmark makeups. Like a good ball cap, like if you can't do a good ball cap, that in itself is a good sign that you need to learn more. You can stick a ball cap on, but it's making it look like a real bald head. And there is a difference as well. This is where the prosthetic side of things come in. There's a difference between removal of hair flawlessly and looking like a bald head. Like a good ball cap, particularly see it from the front, it's the right color. The hair underneath doesn't misshape the head. But when someone turns around, you don't necessarily see the details you would see on my head because this is a bald head. So there's an occipital bone, for example, which on a ball cap is covered with layers of hair, and then maybe a wig net or something, and then
and you don't
a
want
cap
to see
over the
those
top.
wrinkles, the horizontal wrinkles at the base of the skull that you inevitably get with a bald cap. I mean, you can minimize it, but you're never going to make it completely go away.
No.
But the head is completely smooth. Aside underneath the skin, there's connective tissue, but there is no fat.
No.
And if you look at a bald head straight on, the side of the head does not stick out past the ears. And if someone's got a huge amount of hair that's got to be glued down, they almost look... I've seen bald cap applications that they were great applications, but they look kind of alien because the side of the skull is sticking out past the top of the helix on the ear.
Yeah. And
that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah, and it's not something
But
you can necessarily...
it's also really hard to avoid if somebody's not going to actually cut their hair short. They may be doing a play somewhere where they need to have long hair and they're just doing one day on a film and they're putting a bald cap on. So there's all kinds of considerations you have to take into account.
Yeah, it's true. And, doing a silicone appliance or a foam appliance, but an appliance over the top of an existing ball cap may be the way to correct that. But you might actually have to make new ears so the whole thing sits further. But then will that make the head look too wide? So there's so many considerations. It's really hard.
Yeah, exactly. But we can't afford to do that. We don't have that. We don't have the money for that.
Then write a different fucking script.
Or hire somebody else.
Yeah. So ball caps are still a benchmark makeup to do, and I still think they're amazing to do. So,
Yeah, a bald cap done well is a thing of beauty.
Yeah, and Adrian does do demos up and down all over the world, and so if you do get a chance to do a ball cap demo,
I think he's kind of a little disappointed that he's become known as kind of the bald cap guy, because he's so much more than that.
His application is amazing, and he's just straight makeup as well, just brushes and color. He's really, really good, but it's just unfortunate that he's particularly good at something that most people find very difficult or afraid to do. But that was a really nice chat to talk to him about.
Here's a little bit of trivia. When I was in the approval process of the first edition of my book, Adrian was one of the people that my publisher sent my proposal to see what he thought of it, if would be worth that, if he thought there was value in that. And Adrian was one of the first people to.
Oh, so you owe a debt of gratitude to the people that kind of gave you the thumbs up.
He was enthusiastically in favor of me writing that book. So I don't know if I've ever said thank you to Adrian for that.
You can now.
Thanks, Adrian.
That's awesome. Right, we should probably chase on to the second recording that we did on the day with Sangeet. Sangeet, someone I've known for about, as he reminded me, 20 years. We started on, I think it was Doctor Who, the first round of Doctor Who, the Millennium Effects, when it was Chris Eccleston in that new series. And like me, he spent a lot of time in the mould maker. He was really good. But
he only agreed to do it for one season.
Well, also, it was such a horrific shit show. He just wanted out, and I was there, and I agree. It was a shit show, and I don't blame him. I didn't want to go back either. I did not enjoy the first season of Doctor Who at all. Gives me hives now. But there we go. I've got my scars. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't nice for me, and for quite a few people. That's
too bad.
But we were talking about moulds and the digital stuff. Well, you'll listen to him. He's fascinating, but he's so enthused, and it's really nice to hear people that have been doing it that long who are still excited about it. And this is the thing: a lot of the people I talk to, they really love what they do, but they don't necessarily get listened to because it's not Instagram popular. It's not blood. It's not gore. It's not horns. It's not instantly thing. But when you actually listen to what they've got to say, it runs so deep, and they care a lot about it, and they want other people to be able to do well too. And he's one of those guys.
He's very articulate
and very, very clever.
And if you ever get the opportunity to meet Sangeet, he's a terrific guy.
I remember, I think probably about 10 years ago, we were on set of Red Dwarf, and we were in between takes talking about the future of things and how things were going to be. And he was like fizzing in the pants then about this stuff. And it's just like, it's really good. When you're going from job to job as a freelancer, you often don't have time to think these things, and in the downtime it's very easy to just be so preoccupied with the fact you're not working that you don't innovate anything. But he's always tried to push and innovate. He's not had an easy time of it. Do you know what I mean? He's had to work really hard for everything he's got, and it's lovely that he knows where he comes from. He's grounded, and he's come up with a lot of clever stuff, but he's not shy about sharing it with people. And
I've seen people, he's also not egotistical about it. Look what I've done. Because I've seen stuff that Sangeet developed being broadcast by other people saying, look what I've done. When I go, well, you got that from Sangeet.
Yeah. Well, it happened to Lars as well. In Sweden, he's the first one I know of that came up with those 3D printed airbrush tips.
Yeah.
And then other people started doing them and say, oh, look what we've got. And they were selling them. And I think he was giving away for free.
Yeah, he was saying, look what I did. Would you like the file?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it can be a little bit spicy because people want to try and kind of hold on to things, generally speaking. And in the long run, it doesn't really work that well doing that, unless you're Coca-Cola or something.
Just embrace the Dick Smith philosophy of, if you want to know how to do it, just ask and move on.
Well, something that I've noticed is that I've been teaching stuff for a fair bit, but there are people I remember teaching like 10, 15 years ago who are now much better than I could ever be, who will show me things and share me things with me. And so I benefit. I
love when that happens.
But you benefit because the thing is, it's like watering flowers. Like, you're sowing these little seeds, you're watering things along when they start out, and then they go off and they just grow into extraordinary people. They can be so capable, and they can be so much more capable than you ever can be. And that's fine, because that's how it's going to, you can't always be on top of things. And, we all have our peaks, and then you tail off. No one has their time in the sun forever. So the thing is to be good to people early on, so that as you sort of dwindle and fade, you're surrounded by people that you fed a long time ago who are now able to help you and support you. And that's how it should be. And there's obviously with businesses, you get things where, like I say, Coca-Cola don't publish their formula of how they make Coca-Cola because it's a secret recipe, and that's fine.
It's got cocaine in it. Used to.
But if everyone thinks like that, then everyone holds on to everything. Then you end up with silos, and you end up with lots of people doing the same thing. And it's a bit of a tug of war between not telling everyone everything, but at the same time.
And I get that. You know, so there's going to be times when you, like Christian Tinsley's not going to give away how he creates his Bondo for his transfers, and it's incredible stuff. I get that. You know, he's doing some things that I wish I knew how the fuck he did that, but that's okay. You know, I know how to make stuff that works. It's just there are different ways, and if he doesn't want to share that, I get it. But the basics are still out there.
Yeah, but then there's also it's a bit of both. It's like it's kind of like you don't let everybody in your house. You have a front door that you lock and you assign who's allowed in and out. No. But if you're a hermit that's terrified of everything, you never see anybody, that also isn't healthy. So having no front door and living in a concrete bunker where you're, away from everything, neither of those two extremes is the way to think about things. And so it's just one of those things where you've got to sort of be generous, but not stupid. But if you're talking about techniques and things, I think it's different than if it's a formula of a material that you may have spent a lot of money with a laboratory developing. That's a different thing, because that's a different kind of process, because it costs you money up front to do that. But there are plenty of things that people do, and then they are mistakenly thinking that this is then their edge. And it's kind of like, if it's just like 3 words away from revealing the entire process, it's only a matter of time before you lose that edge. And like I said, it's like the Subway thing. It's like, if you know how to make a fucking sandwich, does that mean you're going to destroy Quiznos, subs, and fucking Subway? Well, no, because there's more to what they are. You have to have your own
special sauce.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we cut the bread. We put the cheese. You put cheese in the bread? No fucking way. Oh my God, this is electric. It's like, so it's just kind of thinking of it. Anyway, I'm waffling. Please listen to Sangeet talk some good shit about digital molds and the stuff that he's been up to.
All right, we're recording.
Oh,
there we go.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hey, I'm great.
Man, good to see you. Great day.
Good to see you.
Crazy
again.
day.
So how's your day been? Explain to us what you've done, because I haven't seen anything to know what you've been up to today. You've been demoing?
Yeah, I've been demoing. I started in a new company last year, From Life Prosthetics. So we've got a stand here this year. So we've had one of our team demoing some of our off-the-shelf generic prosthetics, aging prosthetics. And I've just done a character makeup with my friend Doug, which has been really fun.
Oh, the kid you had demoing some of the age stuff is a German
Austrian guy
that we met last year, and I got to tell you, he was my portfolio surgery dude last year, and I looked at his book and I'm like, holy fuck.
Yeah, he's a prodigy.
Yeah.
Ansel Mueller, his name is, from Austria.
Yeah,
and he's doing,
He's outstanding.
Outstanding. Yeah,
Just
the work he was doing at 16 makes us look redundant.
No,
so you snapped him up.
He's somebody to keep an eye on.
Smart move. Very good.
Cheers, guys.
So tell us about From Life Prosthetics, for people who don't know what it is, what you do, what exactly
So
is
one of the things that I've done with From Life Prosthetics is I developed a new technique for making aging prosthetics, where we reverse engineer actual life casts. So I came up with a technique that allows me to make a piece, with no texture, and then allows me to clone the entire texture straight onto that piece without having to sculpt it or use texture stamps.
Wow.
It's I think a unique process. It basically involves starting with the negative from a life cast, right? So I've got all my detail. The negative essentially looks like a finished mold, but it's just the negative. And then separately, I design the piece, I sculpt it with no texture. So then I just make a blank appliance, right, with all the shape, the volumes, the transitions, and then I glue that back into the negative and cast a new core. Right. So I end up with a copy of my original sculpt with the texture cloned onto it.
Because you've established those volumes beforehand.
Beforehand.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Sounds like a lot of work, but the results
way too much work.
The results are going to be, well, we've seen the results are...
The results are second to none, in my opinion. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you, dude.
Well, you've always been like innovative. You were on the podcast a while ago, a few years ago now, pre-COVID.
Good few years, pre-COVID,
Yeah.
2018, I want to say.
Yeah. And you were innovative then, you know, you were always coming up with stuff. The little picture we did of you was your head open.
Yeah, it was very fitting.
Yeah. So nothing's changed, man. You're
Nothing's
still
changed,
innovating.
Man.
And
Innovating is in my blood.
Yeah.
It's a defining part of who I am, is to do things differently, you know.
Yeah.
I believe that's a symptom of being dual heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Just allows me to see multiple views simultaneously and to synergize them.
yeah.
So I've been feel really fortunate that I've been able to bring a bit of who I am into my craft.
Well, and I think other people have started to see the relevance and validity of how you're approaching things and adapting it to their own workflow. You know, with the hot glue for the transfer pieces.
Yep.
Not having to have the transfer paper, you've already got a frame built around it that stretches it out.
Indeed.
So all you have to do is worry about placement,
yeah.
and the edges are going to be out where they are.
Take care of themselves.
That's a kind of a no-brainer. There he is right now.
Yeah, Anselm.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think I had a point at this fucking gone now.
Sorry about that. No,
He's good looking too.
He's good looking, I know.
God, what a son of a bitch.
What I find interesting is that you have the bandwidth to keep thinking about stuff, because a lot of people will get to a point and then just kind of relax on that and not really feel the need to make things different, where you're always getting around. I remember we were on set on Red Dwarf and you were talking about things you were planning on doing, and your brain was like, you're on set, but your brain is somewhere else thinking like, you know, this is taking care of itself, it's fine. So in the between times, be coming up with ways of doing stuff.
Again, bro, it's just a part of who I am. Do you know what I mean? I've had to deal with a lot of negative crap from society, right? Being one of the few brown guys in the industry, it's kept me apart, kept me a little bit on the outside. But that's given, like I said, that's just given me the ability to, well, not the ability, but the motivation to want to change things.
So you're using that as fuel to push back?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And everyone benefits from it as well, because it trickles down.
Well, that's the whole point of anti-racism and progress, right? And progressive ideology is that we all get to progress.
Yeah, we all together forward.
Yeah.
And it's lovely you come to here, because we were like walking past. You pointed out those moulds that have been printed, the 3D printed moulds.
How is the 3D printing aspect of it affecting you?
So this past year we've kind of pretty much successfully transitioned over to an entirely digital workflow. So we're working from scans. We don't always sculpt digitally. It kind of depends. Certainly some of the more kind of like hard surface stuff or slightly kind of different shapes, we like to 3D print. Mm-hmm. So we're now 3D printing master sculpts and, with SLA. So we're SLA printing master sculpts. We're FDM printing jackets and pouring silicon negatives. So
you got this torso mold over on the stand the core and the jacket can't weigh more than 2 pounds.
No, it's less than a kilo of PLA in a full torso mold.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And it's recyclable material.
It's recyclable material, yeah.
It's mad.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Yeah. And, I'm sure none of this is new news, but little things like I used my daughter's 3D printing pen to then be able to go in and correct FDM prints.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Right, and I'll use a little soldering iron to weld FDM prints together, and things like that. So it's really exciting. Yeah,
it's very cool.
Yeah.
I remember you years ago. We were at an IMAX, and you were showing me some molds you made of a vac form with little clips, and they were like, "You don't need these big clamps anymore."
Little bulldog clips.
Yeah, bulldog clips.
Yeah.
It's just just amazing. It's just lovely to whenever I catch up with you, annually, because I rarely see you. You live miles away
if you
from each
listeners
other.
could see the grin on Sangeet's face right now. It's
Because he's fucking shit up and he knows it, and it's what
great.
needs to happen. It's awesome.
it's
It
great.
is needs to happen. I mean, look, I'm going to use this opportunity to jump on my soapbox. And, you know, we're a creative field, right? Yeah, I do believe that we're slightly bogged down with dogma, with a very dogmatic approach to how to make prosthetics.
Very much so. You said this in the podcast. I remember that distinctly. You said people deify the process.
Yes.
And they get hung up on that, and it can then kind of limit your vision because you don't want to deviate from what Dick Smith taught or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's kind
indeed.
of like there's nothing wrong with those techniques, but it shouldn't.
No,
He
but-
was innovating.
He was innovating, and he wanted us to innovate, you know. So I think for us to kind of slightly, you know, sit back on our haunches and just kind of play
Well,
safe.
it kind of piggybacks on what Stuart and I were talking about this morning with you know, mold makers being, you know, people being afraid of making molds, and that mold makers are an underappreciated caste in the scheme of makeup effects, and they shouldn't be. If anything, they should be a deity that's looked upon much more favorably than they are in many cases.
Sure, but I think even the concept of defining someone as a mould maker only really works in the context of an industrialized process, right? So that's only relevant, that only works in the context of big studio systems that like to segregate their crews into little departments. Of course, there's economic value to that at that scale, managing huge teams like that. It kind of works to segregate people into different job titles, but the truth is, this is an umbrella craft, and as you know, my opinion, as a prosthetics artist, you should be able to do everything competently. So that idea that, oh, we're mould makers and we're out of a job because printers are long, well, that's progress, I'm afraid. That is progress, and you know,
embrace it or find something else
I
to do.
started almost 20 years ago now working with Stuart at Neil Gorton's company at Millennium Effects, and I started as a mould maker, and I worked for many years as a mould maker. I don't make moulds now, I print them. The difference is I've adapted.
Yeah, but you had to know how molds work in order to do it. And then you're dragging things across, like you say, because it's that ability. And when you're a small one-man band, and we've done that, you know, it's just you're one or two people in a job. You have to be able to do it all. You can't just rely on something. It's good to be able to do a bit of everything.
It is. But more importantly, like you've just said, like mould making, really, the craft of mould making is the conceptual one. Okay, it's a purely conceptual process. I mean, I design. I design it in my mind, right? So the same processes and the same kind of skill sets are being used. I'm just applying it in a different way with a different tool set. So you know, mould makers. Like I said, I'm still a mould maker. I just use a computer and a printer instead of clay and fiberglass.
You're thinking.
And it's much cleaner.
Much cleaner. I mean, look, I'll give you that example. If I can now get to a point where I'm ready to start running appliances, and I've had to wear one pair of gloves to pour a negative, and that's it. Right? My bin is empty. It doesn't have bags and bags of plaster bandage and tissues and dirty clay and cling film and all the other kind of rubbish that we produce. You know? So I think there's an argument to say that it's environmentally friendlier. It's cost effective now.
Which is the material slowly catching up with our demands. Like you know,
and the
resins.
same with the cost of scanners and printers too. They're getting bigger and less expensive, and allows you to do higher quality work faster. The bamboo printers are like, Stuart should, here, watch this, and started on this basic speed. It's like, holy shit.
It's just going to get faster and more efficient.
I think my first printer printed at 60 millimeters a second, right? And my current printer prints at 500 millimeters a second. So, and it cost a fraction of what my first printer cost, and it's also 3 times the size.
Yeah, it's just all these things coalescing into a different world. And also, if you start thinking that way, you can start planning things. Like people, like we talk about Neil, like, you know, scanning things and scanning things practically and shrinking them down.
He's printing suits.
You know, mixing and matching your skills.
You know, and let's face it, like, you know, film has moved on, so visual effects and post-production are a big, huge part of filmmaking now. So now working with prosthetics in the digital sphere, means that from the get-go, from pre-production, we can already start working alongside post-production and visual effects. So there's been a couple of jobs we've done recently where we've been able to create a digital workflow for our prosthetics, but everything we've created digitally can then be ported straight over to post-production, to visual effects, to incorporate. So they no longer have to kind of do a dodgy photogrammetry scan on the side of our makeup, because we have everything digitally there. So we've been able to do kind of digital prosthetics where I create a practical appliance, practically, but still from a digital workflow. That then goes to the visual effects guys, and then the prosthetic that you'll see on film is a digital application. We never even applied it to the girl's face. We just created it practically, sent it to them, made a practical version so we could light it and colour it, photogrammetry that, okay, and then in post-production we're applying the digital prosthetic to the girl's face. So there's no longer even any rubber or glue involved.
No makeup.
No makeup. No makeup. No makeup. Just
it's a very disruptive thing.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. So.
It's going to happen, man. It's the time of disruption. It's the Kali Yuga.
Jesus, that's amazing.
Well, it's kind of what Bill Corso's doing with his digital company, where he's doing digital touch-ups. It's going to come down to being makeup artists are doing it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, get makeup artists to do the digital stuff because they'll do that bit right. And then it'll be composited, in which we don't do compositing. So the compositing bit, but they're working in a language that we can speak now to a bit.
I think you've just nailed the word, language. I think we used to speak different languages, and our languages are starting to converge now. And this is how language works, right? That you get two languages, they slowly converge and morph in together, and a new language that incorporates the best of both emerges. Right?
There you have it.
Thanks, guys. It's been a real treat being back here again.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
We've got both of us this time as well. You get to speak too. Because I came to see you in your house when you were in London.
Yeah, that's right.
Devon now?
We're in Dorset now.
Dorset,
yeah,
okay.
out in the countryside. So
nice free pleasure.
The countryside's the best.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nice one, guys.
Cheers, man.
Thank
Good
you.
to speak to you. Thank you again.
Yeah, you too, man. You too. Lots of love.
So I enjoyed that chat with Sangeet. I think you did too. It was pretty fucking good.
It energized me. I was starting to drag because it'd been a long day on my feet.
Yeah.
But he came over with that grin on his face and sat down and just went bam into it. And
shot electricity in the arm.
I just felt my energy level going up and up and up.
Yeah, that's the thing about energy, though. It does transfer, doesn't it? Kind of cool. That's cool. Yeah, that was a great talk. So have a look at his websites. We'll put the links into the show notes so you can have a look at the cool stuff he's doing, particularly the From Life stuff, because that's quite new. I haven't seen that done
he
before.
had a full torso mold, including the jacket, over on his stand. That was all 3D printed, and the entire thing couldn't have weighed more than 2 pounds.
And it's made from a material that's recyclable.
It was amazing.
It changes a lot of things. But again, you can't just pick this stuff up without knowing the basics. So you still need to know how to mold a ball. So that's why you should look at our notes from our talk, because it's the source of everything, really, being able to do that.
Yeah, and like we said in our talk, and I think it's in the notes too, send us pictures of your failure. Let us know how it went. It's designed to make you feel better about moving forward with your next mold. See you next time.
Bye.
And it'd be good for you to spend some time with kids who don't run around with cameras and monster makeup.